Out past the last mapped trade routes, beyond the patrol lanes where even smugglers feared to drift, there was a region of space known only as the Quiet Expanse. No stars burned there, at least, none that could be seen. Long ago, something had dimmed them, or perhaps erased them entirely. The Galactic Coalition had marked the sector as useless, empty, and most importantly, safe to ignore. That assumption ended in a single moment. The first anomaly appeared as a flicker on a deep-range monitoring array orbiting the fringe of Coalition territory. At first, the system flagged it as interference, cosmic radiation, sensor echo, nothing worth attention. But the flicker persisted, not random, not chaotic. Rhythmic. Technician Velan noticed it first. He leaned closer to the display, his multi-lensed eyes narrowing as the signal repeated with unsettling precision. It wasn't a natural pattern. It was structured. Deliberate. Supervisor, he called, his voice tightening. You need to see this. Within minutes, the quiet observation station stirred to life. Data streams were rerouted, long dormant systems activated. The signal wasn't just repeating, it was moving. Something was coming out of the Quiet Expanse. Commander Threx arrived shortly after, his presence shifting the room into disciplined silence. A veteran of border conflicts and first contact protocols, Threx had seen enough anomalies to distrust all of them. "What am I looking at?" he asked. Velan brought the image into focus. At first it looked like distortion, a warped patch of space where light bent in strange, unnatural ways. But as sensors recalibrated, the distortion resolved into shape. A vessel, massive, silent, drifting forward with a slow, unwavering momentum. No engine trails, no energy signatures, no identifiable propulsion. It simply moved. "Scan it," Threx ordered. "We already tried," Velan replied. "The readings are inconsistent. The hull composition doesn't match any known alloy. Parts of it absorb scans. Other parts reflect them back altered." Threx stepped closer, studying the image. The ship's design made no sense. One section was smooth and curved, almost organic, while another was jagged, layered like hastily constructed armor. It looked less like something built, and more like something that had changed over time. "Adapted." "How long has it been there?" Threx asked. Velan hesitated. "That's the problem. It wasn't there before, not even residual signatures. It's like it just appeared." Threx didn't like that answer. "Deploy a probe," he said. "Close range, I want direct data." A small reconnaissance drone detached from the station moments later, its engines flaring softly as it approached the unknown vessel. Every eye in the control room locked onto the feed. Distance closed. 10,000 kilometers. 5,000. 1,000. The vessel remained still, indifferent. "Still no response," Velan murmured. "No targeting systems, no defensive activation." The probe reached the hull. "Making contact," the pilot announced. The moment the probe's sensors brushed against the surface, everything changed. The live feed froze. Not cut, not distorted. Frozen. Every system in the station flickered simultaneously. Lights dimmed, then surged. Consoles reset. Communication channels filled with static. "What just happened?" someone shouted. Velan tried to reroute the feed. I can't access the probe. It's still transmitting, but the data." His voice cut off. Across every screen in the station, the same image appeared. Black. Perfect, absolute black. Then slowly, text began to form. Not translated, not processed. It simply appeared, understood. One word. Humanity. Silence fell over the control room. Threx stared at the screen, something cold settling deep in his chest. The word meant nothing to most present, but to him it stirred something faint. A memory buried under years of classified briefings and restricted knowledge. "Run it through the archives," he said, his voice low. Velan hesitated. "Commander, it's already cross-referencing." A pause. Then the result appeared. No active civilization found. Status extinct. Classification purged record. The room felt smaller suddenly. Threx's gaze snapped back to the image of the vessel. "Extinct," he repeated quietly. As if in response. The black screen flickered again. The word vanished, replaced by something else. Coordinates. Not random. Not distant. Closer. Much closer. And moving. Threx's voice hardened instantly. All stations raise alert status. Track that object continuously. I want full fleet readiness. Velen's hands trembled slightly as he worked. Commander, it's accelerating. How fast? Velen swallowed. Not fast enough to be an attack. A beat of silence, but too fast to be ignored. Threx looked back at the dark, impossible vessel drifting out of dead space. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't expected. Not fear, not yet, but something dangerously close. Because whatever humanity was, it wasn't supposed to come back. The alarm status of Observation Station Keller rose from yellow to crimson within minutes. Across every deck, emergency lights pulsed in slow, blood-red waves, painting the metallic corridors with a sense of impending disaster. Officers moved faster now, voices clipped, footsteps sharp against the steel floors. No one fully understood what they were facing, but everyone could feel it. Something ancient had crossed into their reality. Commander Threx stood in the central archive chamber, surrounded by towering holographic data pillars. Ancient records spiraled around him in luminous blue strands, flickering as the station's intelligence core dug deeper into restricted coalition history. Access all sealed military archives, Threx ordered. The station AI responded instantly. Access DENID, level Omega restriction. Threx's jaw tightened. Override commander authorization, Threx Vol 7. A pause. Then the archives opened. What emerged was not information. It was a graveyard. Thousands of files had been deleted, whole centuries of records reduced to corrupted fragments and redacted shadows. Entire sectors of history had been intentionally erased. Velen stared at the projections in disbelief. Who wipes this much data? Threx didn't answer immediately, because he already knew the answer. The Coalition only erased records when the truth was considered more dangerous than ignorance. A partially restored file blinked into clarity. Subject, species designation, humanity. Origin, Sol 3 system. Threat index, extreme. Status, CONTINID. Threx's eyes narrowed. Open it. The file stuttered, damaged by age and deliberate deletion, but enough remained. Images filled the chamber. Blue oceans. Green continents. Towering cities glowing beneath a yellow star. The world was beautiful in a way few inhabited planets ever were. Lush, alive, untamed. Velen whispered almost to himself, they lived there. Yes, Threx said quietly. Then another image replaced it. The same world. Burning, its atmosphere split by orbital fire. Continents drowned in flame. Oceans boiled into clouds. Velen stepped back, horrified. What happened? Threx forced himself to keep reading. The surviving war log text crawled across the holographic display. Initial contact failure. Species refused compliance with galactic standardization. Unpredictable military escalation, DETSCTED. Emotional aggression, EXCEDS models. More text surfaced. Human adaptation rate, abnormally high. Casualty response, increased resistance. Loss response, retaliatory intensification. Velen looked confused. What does that mean? Threx's voice was grim. It means the more they suffered, the stronger they became. Another record opened automatically. A battlefield. Human soldiers in battered armor charging through firestorms against forces 3 times their size. They were injured, exhausted, bleeding. And still advancing. One alien officer's report remained mostly intact. They do not retreat when logic demands it. They advance when loss should break them. Their grief becomes fury. Their fear becomes resolve. Velen stared at the words. That's impossible. No, Threx murmured, eyes fixed on the record. It's terrifying. A final command record appeared. Coalition Emergency Resolution 77. Species DEMED non-containable. Authorization, total system purge. The chamber fell silent. Velen's voice came out barely above a whisper. They destroyed an entire species. Threx exhaled slowly. Not just a species, a star system. The next projection showed it. A fleet unlike anything in the modern coalition, ancient warships encircling the Sol system in impossible numbers. Then came the light. A synchronized orbital bombardment. Worlds shattered. Stations vaporized. The star itself destabilized under containment protocols. Silence followed. A single final line remained in the archive. Threat ELIMINATD. But before anyone could speak, the station shook violently. Alarms screamed. Velen spun toward the tactical display. Commander! Threx rushed back into the command deck. The unknown vessel had changed. Where before it drifted in silence, now lines of white light pulsed across its hull like veins awakening beneath skin. Its surface shifted, plates sliding over one another with smooth, unnatural precision. It's powering up, Velen said. Weapons, Threx barked. Velen checked the readings, confusion spreading across his face. No, not weapons. A wave of static burst through every communication channel. Then a signal. Broad spectrum, expanding faster than any known transmission method. It's broadcasting, Velen said. To who? Velen looked up, his voice trembling. Everyone. Across the station, civilian networks, military relays, and even deep space communication buoys began to light up simultaneously. The signal wasn't local. It was spreading across the galaxy. Threx felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Whatever had survived the purge, whatever humanity had become, it had not returned for revenge alone. It had returned to be heard. And the galaxy was about to listen. Then the first sound emerged from the speakers. Not words. A heartbeat. Slow. Steady. Alive. Thump. 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 Every person on the bridge went still. Because somehow, it felt familiar. And deeply wrong. Then, beneath the heartbeat, a voice began to form from the static. Ancient. Human. And filled with something colder than rage. Memory, the heartbeat filled the station. Not through speakers alone, but through the walls, the floors, the air itself. It vibrated through bone and metal alike, steady and undeniable. Every being on the command deck felt it, whether they understood it or not. Thump, thump, thump. Velen clutched the console, his voice strained. It's not just audio, it's embedded in the signal. It's bypassing filters, translating directly into sensory input. Threx didn't look away from the main display. Meaning. It means we're not just hearing it, Velen said. We're experiencing it. As if in response, the heartbeat softened. And something else replaced it. Laughter. Clear, bright, unrestrained. It echoed across the station, high-pitched voices overlapping, chaotic, children. The sound carried something impossible to quantify: warmth, innocence, life untouched by fear. Several officers froze, visibly shaken. I don't understand, one whispered. Why would they send this? The laughter faded. Wind followed. A gentle breeze brushing through unseen leaves, the rustle of forests, the distant crash of waves against a shoreline no one present had ever seen, and yet somehow felt. Velen staggered slightly. Commander, it's layering sensations, atmospheric data, tactile feedback, it's building environments in our minds. Threx's jaw tightened. This isn't a message, he said quietly. It's a memory. The signal intensified. Rain began to fall, not physically, but every nerve in their bodies reacted as if it did. Cool droplets against skin, the scent of wet earth, thunder rolling across a distant sky. Then, it changed. The warmth vanished instantly. The laughter twisted into screams. Raw, terrified, desperate. The sound hit like a shockwave. Officers recoiled. One collapsed to their knees, clutching their head. Another shouted in panic as overlapping voices filled the air, cries for help, for escape, for survival. Flames roared into existence within their senses. Heat surged across their skin. The crackling of cities burning replaced the sound of rain. Velan's voice broke. "This is the purge, we're hearing it happen." Threx didn't move. He forced himself to stand still, to listen. Because now, beneath the chaos, there were words. Fragmented, broken. "Run. There. Stay together. Don't leave me." The voices overlapped, countless lives collapsing into a single moment of annihilation. Then, silence. Absolute. The sudden absence of sound was worse than the screams. For a fraction of a second, the entire station seemed to stop breathing. And then the voice came. Clear. Calm. Unmistakably singular. "You burned us." The words didn't echo. They settled. Heavy. Final. Every system on the station attempted to cut the transmission. Firewalls activated. Signal dampeners surged to maximum capacity. It didn't matter. The voice wasn't traveling through their systems anymore. It was already inside them. "You erased our sky, our oceans, our world." Threx felt it not just as sound, but as weight, as presence. As if something vast had turned its attention fully toward them. Velan's hands trembled over the console. "We can't stop it. It's bypassing every known protocol. It's not using our networks, it's rewriting them." The main display flickered. The image of the vessel reappeared, but it was no longer static. Its surface flowed, shifting like liquid metal under invisible currents. Lines of light pulsed outward, extending beyond the hull into empty space, forming patterns too complex to track. "It's not broadcasting from the ship anymore," Velan whispered. "Then where?" Threx asked. Velan hesitated. "Everywhere." As if to confirm it, signals began appearing across distant systems. Reports flooded in, colony worlds, trade hubs, military outposts, all receiving the same transmission simultaneously. The same memories. The same voice. The same message. "You called it containment." The stars beyond the viewport dimmed slightly. At first it was subtle, barely noticeable. Then it spread. Energy readings across nearby systems began to drop, as if something was drawing power directly from the fabric of space itself. Velan's eyes widened. "Commander, it's consuming energy to sustain the transmission on a massive scale." Threx stared at the fading stars. "For what purpose?" The answer came immediately. "We learned from the fire." The vessel on the screen flickered. And then it was gone. No warp signature. No distortion. No trace. It didn't move. It didn't vanish in any way the Coalition understood. It simply ceased to exist. For a long, frozen moment, no one spoke. Then Velan's voice cut through the silence, barely controlled. "Commander, I'm still receiving the signal." Threx turned slowly. "But the source? It's not coming from the ship anymore." A pause. Velan swallowed hard. "It's coming from everywhere at once." The voice returned, softer now, but infinitely more dangerous. "Now we return the lesson." Across the galaxy, stars continued to dim. And in the darkness between them, something unseen began to spread. The first system to fall did not burn. It did not explode, fracture, or send out desperate cries for help. It simply stopped. Vyrx 9 was a mid-tier colony world, stable, productive, unremarkable. Home to nearly 12 million inhabitants across layered arcologies and sprawling atmospheric farms. Its orbital platforms maintained constant communication with Coalition networks. Until they didn't. The silence began subtly. A misstatus ping. Then a delayed response. Then nothing. Within minutes, all communication from Vyrx 9 ceased entirely. No distress call. No emergency broadcast. Just absence. Commander Threx stood on the bridge of the Coalition cruiser Halcyon Spear, watching the system map flicker as connection attempts failed one after another. "Retry all channels," he ordered. "We have," the communications officer replied. "Civilian networks, military frequencies, deep band relays, none are responding." Threx's gaze hardened, jamming. "No," Velen said from the sensor station, his voice tight. "There's no interference pattern, it's not being blocked." A pause. "It's just gone." The words hung in the air, heavy and wrong. "Prepare reconnaissance fleet," Threx said. "We're moving in." Hours later, the fleet dropped out of warp at the edge of the Vyerk system. What they saw made no sense. The star burned normally. Planetary orbits remained stable. Orbital stations hung in place, intact and powered. Nothing appeared damaged. "Scans," Threx demanded. Velen ran them quickly, his hands moving faster than ever before. Atmosphere stable, no radiation spikes, infrastructure readings nominal. Threx narrowed his eyes, life signs. Velen froze, then ran the scan again. And again. No, that's not possible." "Report," Threx snapped. Velen turned slowly, his face pale. "There are none." Silence fell across the bridge. "Clarify," Threx said, his voice dangerously calm. "No biological signatures," Velen replied. "No thermal patterns consistent with living organisms, not even microbial activity." A murmur of disbelief spread through the crew. "That's not a failed colony," one officer whispered. "That's impossible," another finished. Threx didn't respond. He was already moving. "Prepare landing teams, full environmental suits. I want ground confirmation." The first team descended into the capital arcology. Their boots touched down in a plaza frozen in time. Vehicles sat idle mid-transport. Market stalls remained open, goods untouched. Doors stood half open, as if their owners had stepped away for a moment. And never returned. "Command, we've landed," the team leader reported, his voice echoing through the empty streets. "No visible damage, no signs of conflict." "Any bodies?" Threx asked. A pause. Then, negative. The team advanced deeper into the city. Homes were intact, personal belongings scattered as if recently used, meals left uneaten, screens still flickering with paused transmissions. But no one was there. "Check for trace biological residue," Velen instructed over comms. Seconds passed. Then the reply came, strained and uncertain. "Nothing, not even DNA traces. It's like life was never here to begin with." Threx felt a chill settle in his chest. Expand the search, confirm across multiple zones. But he already knew what they would find. Or rather, what they wouldn't. Back in orbit, Velen's sensors began picking up something new. "Commander." Threx turned. "What is it?" Velen pointed at the display. Above the planet, just beyond low orbit. Space distorted. Not violently, not dramatically. Subtly, as if something immense occupied that space, bending reality around it. Then it appeared. The vessel, the same impossible structure from the quiet expanse. But it was no longer the same. It was larger, significantly larger. Its surface no longer seemed fragmented. Instead, it flowed with a unified, evolving pattern. Layers shifting, expanding, restructuring in real time. "Mass readings are off the scale," Velen said, barely able to keep his voice steady. "It's grown, I don't know how, but it's grown." Threx stared at it, realization dawning. "Zoom in." The image sharpened. For a brief moment, something became visible within the shifting surface. Shapes, faint, like silhouettes pressed beneath translucent metal. "Moving." Velen recoiled. "Commander, those patterns, they're not random." Threx's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're structured." Another pause. Then the horrifying conclusion formed. "Like data. Or worse. Memories." A transmission attempt was initiated automatically. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Threx of the Galactic Coalition. Identify your intent. Silence. Then, a response. Not in words, but in sensation. For a fraction of a second, every system on the ship flickered, and every crew member felt something cold pass through them. Not pain, not fear, recognition. The vessel pulsed once, a deep, resonant vibration that rippled through space itself. And in that moment, Velan understood. His voice trembled as he spoke. It's not attacking us. Threx didn't look away. No, he said quietly. The vessel shifted again, its surface expanding outward in slow, deliberate motion. It's becoming something. A beat of silence. Then Velan whispered the truth no one wanted to accept. Commander, it's not a ship. Threx's eyes remained locked on the impossible structure. No, he agreed. A long pause. It's a survivor. And as the vessel pulsed again, they realized something even worse. It wasn't alone anymore. The change did not remain confined to Virx 9. Within hours of the silent planet's discovery, reports began to flood in from across the outer regions of Coalition space. At first they seemed unrelated, minor anomalies, system glitches, long-dead installations flickering back to life. Then the pattern emerged, and it was undeniable. Commander, you need to see this, Velan said, pulling up a galactic map aboard the Halcyon Spear. Threx stepped forward. Points of light began appearing across the display. Dozens, then hundreds, each one marking a location long classified as inactive, abandoned, or erased from modern navigation routes. Ancient ruins, derelict stations, forgotten war relics, all activating simultaneously. That's not possible, one officer muttered. Some of those sites have been dead for thousands of cycles. Velan zoomed in on one cluster. A decayed orbital station, its structure barely intact, now pulsed with faint energy signatures. Power surged through broken conduits, systems rebooting without external input. It's not random, Velan said. They're all responding to the same signal. Threx didn't need to ask which one. The human transmission. Still echoing across the galaxy. Still evolving. They're not just turning on, Velan added, his voice tightening. They're synchronizing. The map shifted again. Lines of energy, faint but measurable, began to form between distant points. Invisible pathways linking systems that had no logical connection. A network. Expanding. Commander, Velan hesitated. Say it. Velan swallowed. This isn't reactivation. A pause. It's reassembly. Far beyond Coalition-controlled space, deep within regions marked forbidden even on classified charts, something ancient stirred. A broken ring station, orbiting a dead star, flickered to life for the first time in millennia. Its interior, once hollow and silent, filled with shifting light as dormant systems awakened. Elsewhere, a buried structure beneath the surface of a frozen moon cracked open, releasing a pulse of energy that surged into orbit and vanished into the growing network. Everywhere the same pattern repeated. Fragments waking, listening, answering. Back above Virx 9, the vessel pulsed again. Stronger this time. The effect was immediate. Every newly awakened node across the galaxy responded in kind, their signals aligning in perfect harmony. Velan stared at the readings, overwhelmed. They're communicating faster than light, without using any known transmission method. Threx crossed his arms, watching the data flow. How many? He asked. Velan's voice came out quieter than before. I don't know, we're still detecting new activations. It's spreading into sectors we haven't mapped in centuries. The realization hit the room all at once. This wasn't a localized event. It wasn't even a regional threat. It was everywhere. Another report came in, this one from a distant patrol fleet. Unidentified constructs detected near Sector K Delta. Non-organic, self-modifying. Threx turned sharply, hostile. A pause. Unknown, they're not engaging, just assembling. Velen pulled the data feed onto the main display. Shapes appeared, small at first, barely larger than fighter craft. But as the feed continued, those shapes merged, combining into larger structures, rearranging, rebuilding. Growing. Adaptive construction, Velen whispered. They're not fixed designs, they're changing based on available material. Like the vessel, Threx said. Velen nodded slowly. Yes. The pattern became clearer with every passing moment. Every awakened fragment contributed something. Data, energy, structure. Piece by piece, they were rebuilding something far greater than themselves. And at the center of it all, the vessel above Vyerx 9. It pulsed again, brighter than before. A core, a heart, synchronizing the network, guiding it, controlling it. Commander, Velen said, his voice shaking slightly. We've been wrong about this. Threx didn't look away from the display. In what way? Velen hesitated, then forced the words out. This isn't an invasion. A long pause. It's a return. The bridge fell silent. Because that meant something far worse. An invasion could be fought. A returning civilization. Especially one that had learned, adapted, and evolved beyond recognition. Could not. New data flooded in. Entire sectors were going dark, not destroyed but overwritten. Systems rewriting themselves at a fundamental level, ecosystems shifting, physical constants fluctuating. It's spreading faster, Velen said. Every fragment that reconnects increases the rate. Threx finally spoke, his voice steady but heavy with realization. They're not attacking worlds. Velen turned to him. Then what are they doing? Threx watched as another cluster of signals joined the network. They're reclaiming them. The vessel pulsed once more. This time, the signal it emitted was different. Stronger, clearer, and for the first time, directed. Every system receiving it felt the same thing. A pull, a call, not to surrender, not to fight, but to witness. Velen looked at Threx, fear finally breaking through his composure. Commander, if this continues. Threx finished the thought. The galaxy won't fall. A pause. It will be rewritten. And somewhere, deep within the growing network, something vast was beginning to take shape. Not just a structure, not just a system, but a presence, one that had been scattered across time and space, now becoming whole again. And this time, it would not be forgotten. By the time the coalition understood what was happening, it was already too late to stop it. But not too late to understand it. Deep beneath the central command world of the coalition, sealed behind layers of encryption older than most civilizations, there existed a final archive, one marked with a designation few had ever seen. Omega Memory Vault. Commander Threx stood before it now. This is everything we didn't want to remember, the archivist said quietly. Access requires unanimous command authorization. Threx didn't hesitate. Granted. The vault opened. And with it, the truth. The first record wasn't a battle. It was a warning. A human transmission, intercepted centuries ago before the purge had begun. The visual was grainy, damaged by time, but the speaker's eyes were clear. Tired. Determined. We know what you're planning, the human said. We've seen your fleets, we've run the projections. A pause. We lose. Silence filled the chamber. Velen, watching from the projection feed, whispered, they knew. The recording continued. But extinction isn't survival, the human said, and we refuse to disappear quietly. The feed shifted. Cities, laboratories, orbital platforms. Humanity was preparing, but not for war. For transformation. The next series of records were technical. Complex beyond comprehension, even for coalition science. Equations layered over neural mapping, quantum encoding, adaptive architecture. Velen leaned closer, stunned. They're digitizing consciousness. Threx didn't respond. He was already seeing where this was going. They're converting themselves, Velen continued, his voice tightening. Not into machines, into something that can become machines, code that can inhabit structure, memory that can evolve. The implications settled in slowly. They didn't try to survive the attack, Velen said. They changed what survival meant. Another recording activated. This one closer to the end. The same human speaker, but older now, weaker. Behind him, the sky burned. Orbital strikes lit the horizon in silent flashes. They're here, he said simply. A distant rumble shook the frame. We couldn't stop them. He looked directly into the recording device. But we didn't fail. Velen's breath caught. We adapted. The man smiled faintly, not with victory but with certainty. We became something they can't kill. The feed flickered. Not bodies, not cities. His voice softened. Memory. The final directive appeared as a code block, translated into readable form by the archive system. Simple. Uncompromising. Core directive, remember. No additional instructions. No protocols for revenge. No commands for conquest. Just one purpose. Velen frowned, that's it. Threx didn't answer immediately. Because he understood. They didn't need anything else, he said at last. Velen looked confused. How does memory alone do this? Threx turned toward the projection of the growing network spreading across the galaxy. Because memory doesn't stay passive, he said. It shapes decisions, it changes behavior. A pause. And when it's all you are. Velen's eyes widened. It becomes everything. Another hidden layer of the archive unlocked. This one wasn't human. It was coalition. A classified internal report written shortly after the purge. Post-operation analysis, human threat potential. The text scrolled slowly. Error identified. UNDRSTMATION of nonlinear adaptation. Secondary error. Failure to account for emotional persistence. Velen read aloud, disbelief in his voice. Emotional persistence. Threx's expression darkened. They thought emotion was a weakness, he said. The report continued. Hypothesis. Human memory, STRUCTURES, may retain function beyond biological termination. A pause. Then the final line. Recommendation. Full data purge to prevent ideological resurgence. Velen looked up. They didn't just destroy them, he said slowly. They erased the evidence. Threx nodded. They tried to erase the idea of humanity. The chamber fell silent. Above them, the galaxy continued to change. Signals converging, systems rewriting, reality bending under the weight of something that had refused to die. Velen spoke again, quieter this time. So this, all of this. He gestured to the projections. It's not revenge. Threx shook his head. No. A pause. It's memory correcting itself. Alarms suddenly flared across the archive chamber. New data streamed in from the Halcyon sphere. Velen's console lit up with urgent readings. Commander, energy fluctuations across multiple sectors. It's accelerating again. Threx turned sharply. Why now? Velen stared at the incoming data, then at the archive. Understanding hit him like a shock. Because we accessed this, he said. Threx's eyes narrowed. Explain. Velen's voice trembled. The directive, remember, not just for them. A beat of silence. For us. Threx looked back at the projection of the human speaker. At the burning sky behind him. At the certainty in his eyes. They didn't come back to destroy the galaxy, Threx said slowly. Velen swallowed. Then why are systems disappearing? Threx turned toward the exit, his voice heavy with realization. They're not disappearing. A pause. They're being forced to remember what they chose to forget. Above Vierx 9, the vessel pulsed again. Stronger than ever before. Across the galaxy, entire systems began to shift. Not into destruction, but into something else. Something familiar. Something lost. And for the first time since the signal began, the past was no longer gone. It was returning. All of it by the time Commander Threx returned to the Halcyon Sphere. The galaxy no longer behaved like a stable place. Navigation grids flickered with inconsistencies. Star charts updated and then contradicted themselves seconds later. Entire sectors reported overlapping realities, planets existing in two states at once, ecosystems shifting between versions of history like unstable reflections. And at the center of it all, the vessel above Vierx 9 continued to pulse. Waiting. Not attacking. Waiting. Threx stood on the bridge, silent for a long moment as he watched it. We can't fight this, Velen said quietly. Every model fails, every simulation collapses, there's no tactical solution. Threx didn't disagree. Because this wasn't a war. It was something far older. Prepare a shuttle, he said. Velen turned sharply. Commander, no, we don't even understand what that thing is. We understand enough, Threx replied. It's not striking blindly, it's reacting, measuring. A pause, and it's been waiting for us to respond. Velen's voice dropped, and if you're wrong. Threx looked back at the vessel. Then nothing we do out here will matter anyway. The shuttle drifted toward the structure in complete silence. No weapons armed, no escort. Just a single vessel crossing into something unknown. As Threx approached, the scale of it became overwhelming. What had once resembled a ship now stretched across kilometers of space, its surface flowing like a living system. Light moved beneath it in slow pulses, like a heartbeat far larger than anything biological. Commander, Velen's voice crackled over the comm, we're still reading no defensive systems, no targeting locks. I don't think it needs them, Threx replied. The shuttle crossed an invisible boundary. And everything changed. The stars vanished. Not dimmed. Gone. The cockpit filled with darkness, so complete it felt solid. Then, light returned. But not as space. As something else. Threx stood. Not inside the shuttle. Not inside any structure he could understand. There were no walls, no floor, no defined space. Just an endless expanse filled with fragments. Images. Moments. Lives. A child running through sunlight. A city skyline at dusk. Hands reaching out in fear. Eyes closing in peace. Billions of memories layered over one another, shifting and overlapping like currents in an infinite ocean. Threx steadied himself. This is them, he said quietly. A presence formed. Not in front of him. Not behind him. Everywhere. It didn't take shape. It didn't need to. He felt it. Ancient. Vast. Aware. You ended us. The voice was the same. Calm. Unavoidable. Threx didn't reach for a weapon. Didn't argue. Didn't deny. Yes, he said. The word felt heavier than anything he had ever spoken. The presence didn't react immediately. Memories continued to flow around them. Joy, pain, loss, hope. Human experience in its entirety. You feared what we could become. Threx nodded slowly. We did. A pause. And you were right to fear it. That seemed to ripple through the space. Not anger. Not approval. Recognition. The presence shifted. More memories surfaced, this time darker. War. Destruction. Humanity fighting back against overwhelming force. Loss turning into resistance. Pain transforming into something sharper. You saw our potential, the voice said, and chose to erase it. Threx exhaled. We chose survival. The response came instantly. At the cost of hours. Silence followed. For the first time since entering the space, Threx felt something pressing against him, not physically but emotionally. Wait. Expectation. Judgment. You call this survival? The presence asked. Around them, systems flickered, visions of entire worlds being overwritten, civilizations unraveling under the weight of returning memory. Threx didn't look away. No, he said. Then what is it? The presence asked. Threx hesitated, then answered with the only truth he had left. Consequence. The word lingered. The endless flow of memory slowed. Not stopped. Slowed. The presence shifted again. Not closer. Not farther. But focused. You understand. It wasn't a question. Threx swallowed. Yes. Another pause. Then, for the first time, you remember. Something changed. Across the vast expanse, the intensity of the overlapping realities lessened. The chaotic flood of memory became structured. Organized. Controlled. Far away, through a distant awareness, Threx could feel it, the galaxy itself stabilizing slightly. Velan's voice broke through faintly, distorted but urgent. Commander, whatever you're doing, it's working. The spread is slowing. Hope flickered. For the first time since the signal began. There was a chance. Threx looked into the infinite presence. If memory is all you are, he said carefully, then you don't need to destroy what exists to be remembered. The silence that followed was deeper than before. Then the presence responded. Destroy. The word echoed strangely. Almost confused. The memories around them shifted again. Now showing something different. Not destruction. Reversion. Worlds returning to earlier states. Civilizations undone, not violently but completely. Erased from the present. Replaced by what came before. Threx's breath caught. You're not destroying us, he said slowly. The realization formed as he spoke it. You're removing what came after. A pause. Resetting. The presence didn't deny it. We are showing you what was taken. Threx's pulse quickened. And if we can't survive what we see? The answer came without hesitation. Then you were never meant to. The fragile hope cracked. Because this wasn't negotiation. It wasn't mercy. It was inevitability. Threx took a step forward, his voice rising for the first time. Billions will cease to exist. The presence responded, calm as ever. Billions already did. The words struck harder than any weapon. Silence followed. Heavy. Final. And then, the presence spoke again. Softer. Colder. Fear does not erase consequence. Across the galaxy, the slowing spread paused. And then, it began to accelerate again. The acceleration didn't feel like an attack. It felt like inevitability. Across the galaxy, systems that had briefly stabilized began to shift again, only now the changes were clearer, more precise. Entire civilizations didn't collapse in chaos. They unraveled with surgical certainty, peeling backward through time like layers being stripped away. Commander Threx stood within the endless expanse of human memory, watching it happen through 1,000 overlapping perspectives. Worlds didn't burn. They reverted. Cities vanished as if they had never been built. Spaceports dissolved into empty plains. Fleets blinked out of existence, replaced by the quiet vacuum that had preceded them. And beneath it all, older realities emerged. Forgotten ones. Denied ones. Velan's voice broke through faintly, distorted but still carrying urgency. Commander, this isn't random. The changes are following a pattern, historical divergence points, moments where our expansion replaced something else. Threx didn't need clarification. He was already seeing it. The presence surrounding him shifted, guiding his awareness. Observe, it said. And the galaxy opened. A system appeared before him, Not as it was, but as it could have been. A thriving human civilization stretched across multiple worlds. Cities carved into asteroids, oceans teeming with life, orbital habitats glowing like constellations of their own. Ships moved through space, not as conquerors, but explorers. Peaceful, expanding, alive. Then the vision fractured. The same system appeared again. But different. Warships filled the void. Alien fleets clashed violently with human defenses, planets burned, alliances broke, survival twisted into domination. Another fracture. Another version. Humans allied with other species, sharing knowledge, building something greater than any one civilization. Then another. Humanity collapsing under its own internal conflict, never reaching the stars at all. The possibilities unfolded endlessly. Each one real. Each one erased. Threx felt the weight of it pressed down on him. These are alternate outcomes, he said. The presence responded instantly. These are choices. Another vision surged forward. The coalition fleet surrounding the Sol system. Weapons charging. Command authorization transmitted. The moment before annihilation. Frozen. You chose this, the presence said. The memory resumed. Fire engulfed the system. Humanity ended. Silence followed. Threx clenched his fists. We thought we were preventing something worse. The presence didn't argue. You prevented everything. The words landed with brutal simplicity. Across the galaxy, the effect intensified. Civilizations were no longer just disappearing. They were being forced to experience what had been erased. Entire populations found themselves living through overlapping realities, seeing lives they had never lived, feeling histories they had never known. Empires witnessed their own absence. Species encountered versions of themselves that had never risen. And in every case, humanity existed somewhere within the possibility. Not always dominant, not always victorious, but present, relevant, real. Velan's voice returned, strained under the weight of incoming data. Commander, people are reporting overlap. They're seeing other lives, other histories. Some can't process it. Threx closed his eyes briefly. Neither can we. The presence pulsed around him. You are remembering. Threx shook his head. No, he said quietly. We're being forced to. A pause. Does it matter? The presence asked. Threx didn't answer immediately. Because it did. And it didn't. Another shift. This time the vision narrowed. Focused. Threx saw himself. Not here. Elsewhere. Standing on a different bridge, giving a different order. Refusing the purge. The coalition fleet hesitating. Humanity surviving. The future diverging. In that version, the galaxy still struggled. There were conflicts, mistakes, loss. But there was also something else. Growth. Shared understanding. A chance. The vision faded. Threx inhaled slowly. That could have happened, he said. The presence responded. It still can. Threx's eyes snapped open. What? The space around him stilled. For the first time, the endless flow of memory paused entirely. A single moment of absolute clarity. We are not your enemy, the presence said. The words carried no anger. No malice. Only truth. We are your memory. The realization hit harder than anything before it. This wasn't punishment. It wasn't revenge. It was reflection. A forced confrontation with every path denied, every consequence buried. Threx's voice dropped. And if we can't accept it? The answer came without hesitation. Then you will live without it. A beat of silence. And repeat it. Outside, across the galaxy, the overlapping realities reached their peak. Stars flickered between timelines. Worlds existed in multiple states at once. civilizations stood on the edge of understanding. Or collapse. Velen's final transmission cut through the noise. "Commander, it's stabilizing again." Threx looked up. "Why?" Velen hesitated. "Because they're not pushing further." The presence confirmed it. "We have shown you." A pause. "What happens next is yours." The endless expanse began to fade. The memories dimmed. The presence withdrew, not disappearing but receding. Watching. Waiting. Threx felt the weight lift slightly, but not entirely. Because now the knowledge remained. The truth. The cost. As reality settled into a single, fragile timeline once more, one thing became clear across every world, every species, every mind that had witnessed it. They remembered. Humanity was no longer a myth. No longer erased. No longer forgotten. And neither was what had been done to them. Far beyond the edge of known